Hi guys, it's Colouring with Liv. Welcome back to my channel, and in this video I wanted to show you what I coloured in 2025. So this one I did with colouring pencils and a background of watercolour and a little bit of neo colour at the top that didn't go quite to plan, and a little bit of Posca. So I finished that at the beginning of January, and so this is Kerby Rosanes' Fragile World, and let's take a look what else I did in this book. I love this page. This page I did with some soft pastel, so I've got the mini sticks from Paper Castles, and then I finished it off with colouring pencils, so it kind of ate up my colouring pencils quite quickly. But I still think it looks really good, and also some white Posca. And the next one is the elephant. Also love how this turned out. So I did a base layer of watercolour of a kind of ochre yellowish base to bring out that warm feeling, and then I went over it with colouring pencils, and I did a little bit more watercolour for the background on that one. And this double page for the tiger, I did it all in colouring pencils. This was my first time using a page with only my polychromos colouring pencils, and I really loved how it turned out. And I used Mineral Spirit to blend the background so it was a little bit more smooth. And then after that I did the rhino, but the blue sky in the background didn't turn out too well, and I tried to fix it, so I kind of went over a certain section. Ugh. Anyways, but I was trying to focus on the skin, and instead of going for just greys, trying to make it a little bit more colourful with purple and yellow. So yeah, that was the section that I couldn't fix on the sky, but I tried to cover it up. And this one I did in the summer, so it was a whale, and I used watercolour, mainly watercolour pencils, and a little bit of oil pastel, so the orange oil pastel on the fish. So I love how the fish turned out, but I feel like I could have done a little bit more for the whale shark. I love how the spots came out on the whale shark, but I feel like I could have done a bit more to that. And I used just one colour for the blue watercolour sea, just to kind of see what I could do with just one colour. And this is my most recent one. It's all done in colouring pencils because I loved how that tiger came out, so I tried to do that again. And I like the kind of contrast between the blues and the yellow to kind of bring out the light and shadows, but I found this page to be quite difficult. I wasn't sure whether to do it like the whole snow leopard, but then I decided to have a section where it looked like ice, and then because the snow leopard is kind of more white and grey, but then also has tones of yellow, so it was and then I started working front to back in this one, Petites Poupees. So this is by Hachette Heroes, and I started off with the Little Mermaid. So I did this with watercolour and I think neo colours, and a little bit of watercolour pencils as well. So I was trying to practice that stippling effect. The hearts was done with neo colours, so I found a good tutorial on how to do hearts. And for the tree, I topped it off with my watercolour pencils. So I added a kind of purplish colour for the brown, and really love how vibrant the tree looked. I feel like Alice and the cat was a little bit neglected at that point. And this was the first time I was working with oil pastels, and I love how it turned out. I was just focusing kind of more on the light, kind of bringing the light over the petals. Yeah, so really happy with how that turned out. And this one is Ursula. So I loved that glow from the seashell. And then I also added a bit of silver gel pen, but you can't really see the glitteriness of it. And I like how I finished it off with a bit of green over the top of the background. It gives it a little bit more depth. This one was the first time I was working with my Crayola markers as a watercolor, and I was like, wow, who knew that Crayolas could be so fun to work with. So sometimes I use my more expensive supplies, and then other times I see what I can do with my cheaper supplies, and I really loved how that turned out. And this one is done all in acrylic, so I mixed the paint myself. And yeah, I don't know about her skin color, looks quite alien like, but yeah, it's not bad. This one I did Belle with a base of watercolor, and then I topped it off with coloring pencils and a bit of gold Posca for the books. So it's quite dark, which I wanted it to have that glow from the rose. And these 2 pages I still need to do. This one I laid with gesso because I thought I was going to do that this Christmas, but I didn't quite manage to get around to doing that one. Next up is Worlds of Wonder, or Monde Rêve. And I started off by doing the cake cart page, and I looked on Pinterest for how to do a background, and I saw someone who did a tree in the background with a gate, so I kind of replicated that but chose my own colours. And the background of the blue, again, I always have trouble with blue, it seems. And yeah, I can't remember if it was the mixture of, like, I think maybe neo colours, and then I was trying to fix it with my watercolour pencils. Yeah. And here's the flamingo page. I was happy at how this turned out. So I used acrylic for the flamingos, colouring pencils for the buildings, watercolour for the sun, oil pastels for the lake swampy bit, and yeah, I think I finished it off with oil pastels for the night sky, but I started it with neo colours. And this one was a buddy colour with Shemaine, and I started this off with watercolour pencils, and also did it with my polychromos colouring pencils for the gold frames. And oh, this was the one where I started off just with colouring pencils for the moth, and then I went over the top of it with my watercolour pencils, but using it like a watercolour, so just grabbing it from the tip of the pencil. And here's some of my swatches on the back when I was trying to figure out what colours to use. Next we have Small Victories by Johanna Basford, another Johanna Basford one. So this one I did for Valentine's. So I did a pastel background. So nice and easy, just one pastel, rubbed it in, and then I think I tried to do a little bit with pastel pink and green, and then went over it with some water-based markers and a little bit of gold gel pen as well. And this was actually my second attempt. You would have thought that it was my first attempt, but because I managed to do the other heart so quickly, I thought, oh, I can do this one. But with the streaks, the lines, is basically the pastel being wet. So I was trying to, oh, and it also came off on the other page as well. So soft pastels being like wetted. I can't remember if I used mineral spirit to wet it, but yeah, it didn't turn out as good as I thought. And this was just with some fine liners, so nice easy one. And then I thought I could put some pastel just for the background. And these two pages I want to do. This one should be coming up as a buddy colour, but we'll see. I'm hoping to do that with colouring pencils. Oh, and there's one more page. So this one I saw by Olivia Oderin, and I wanted to replicate that. And someone else on Instagram, Sam, also did this page. So I just used the photo reference and I did it in colouring pencils for the main bit and oil pastels for the background. Oh, and I forgot to mention how I did this little Christmas truck last Christmas, just as a small win, and the other truck in springtime of 2025. But I need to finish that page. So here we're moving on to Lulu Mayo's A Million Cute Animals. And I did that one for Easter, the one with the hens. And I used pastel markers, colouring pencils. Yeah. So that was quite fun, adding in some clouds and like my own little illustrations for the background. So I loved how the water-based markers turned out on that Valentine's Day spread. So I continued using pastel with markers. So this is also with pastel and markers. And I just got my brush white Posca, so I think I was testing that out as well. But because I tried some water-based media in Lulu Mayo's book, it didn't turn out too well, so that's why I just stuck with pastels for quite a bit. So again, pastel background, the koala bears are done with pastels, and then I also added some white Posca. It almost looks a bit Christmassy, the leaves, the way I've added the white Posca. And I think I tried to finish off the hearts with some colouring pencils on top, and then so that bottom bit I just added in. Oh, and I like that page as well. I might do that one this coming year in 2026. Maybe these two as well. Yeah, I love Lulu Mayo's illustrations. They're really cute, super cute. Here, oh my gosh, I thought that the green frog tape was supposed to be like a painter's tape, but it's not painter's tape, it's for walls, not paper. So that's my mistake. But as you could see, even just using the watercolors, it didn't take to the paper too well. So this is another one of Lulu Mayo's, and I did the background with pastels to make a sunset sky and some acrylic clouds and some markers as well. So at this time I didn't have the pastel fixative, I only had the oil fixative. So I gave it another spray after showing you guys because it was coming off my hand. But the reason why it didn't transfer is because I think I had a something like a piece of paper in between, just protecting that page. So these are the two fixatives that I have, both by Sennelier. So the first one I had was the oil pastel one, and I just used it on everything, on both my colouring pencils. I have polychroma, so they are oil based, and because I didn't have anything for pastels, that's what I used. But then I realised actually I need one for pastels, and yeah, so the one that are made for dry pastels or soft pastels work really nicely, and it doesn't stink as much as the oil pastel fixative. And this one is by Millie Marotta. This was like one of my very first colouring books. So this is the page that I did in 2025 around Easter. So I just got some cheap markers, and it was like a set of blues, and I wanted to test them out. So this was a nice way of testing them out. And for the background I used Neo colours. So I was really struggling on thinking of how to use my Neo colours, but I think this is where my love for markers started to come around. And this one is an old one that I used with my cheap Faber-Castell pencils. So it was like the student grade. Love that page. Now I might have to do some more in Millie Marotta's. It's kind of like my forgotten colouring book. This is another old one that I did with distress inks, because at the time I was into card making. So I bought, this was done in 2018. And yeah, so I just used the distress inks like a watercolour. And here I was testing out some other watercolours, so it's a bit of a mishmash. And on this page I got some cheap alcohol markers. So it was the first time that I was using alcohol markers, and I love the way that it blended. So when I said that I haven't really used markers that much, I guess looking back, maybe I have, and I haven't really realised it. And this is the difference between my cheap and polychromos. So this is the polychromos colouring pencils, and these are my cheap student grade colouring pencils that I first got. So both by Faber-Castell. And this is just a page I was testing stuff on, and this again was done with the student grade cheap Faber-Castell pencils. And I do remember it hurting my hand trying to press so hard to try and get some colour out of the pencil, whereas with the polychromos it doesn't hurt my hand at all. This was done with distress inks. So I was just messing around with the colours. So I just got my Distress inks back after moving abroad. So the stuff was in storage for a few years, I think 3 or 4 years, and I just got my stuff back, like my computer and my microphone, my tripod. And this one is in Lost Ocean by Johanna Basford. So I was playing around with different things. So I felt like it didn't take to the paper so well, but I did kind of go a bit crazy with the watercolor to begin with. I did use a lot of water. The bottom section I used markers, and on some of the fish I used colouring pencils, and where the page ripped on some of the bits I used oil pastels. So the right page's background is done with acrylic, and then the left background page is done with oil pastels to try and smoothen. Well, it was just like a bit of an experiment with my supplies. So that was actually the only one that I've done in this book. I couldn't believe it. I thought I had done another page, but it looks like that was the only one I did. So the whale shark was actually from her other book. And this is a French book called Mondes Imaginaire by Dessain and Tolra. And I did this one all in acrylic, topping it off with a little bit of Micron permanent pen. And yeah, this was done for Halloween, and I loved how it turned out. Love, love, love. So yeah, I'll just flip through some of the pages. There's another page that I want to do in this book, maybe one of these mushroom pages. There's this one, and there's another one over here. So I saw a tutorial where Black Canary does some watercolor and acrylic markers, and I loved how that turned out. So this one is not a colouring page, but I did this with pastels, black cat. I found this digital image on Pinterest, and I just decided to paint it with pastels, and I loved how the gems came out. I was really impressed with myself, and a little bit of gold Posca as well. Another Lulu Mayo, Million Mermaids. So this one I tried starting front to back. That was the first page I got with my Neo colours, and in 2025 I did this page with my acrylics. So I loved how the seashells turned out, and this was where I ended up buying a different red and a different blue. So that sail, where it looks very like a darker blue than the rest, that's actually me just so I need to bring out my acrylics again to really kind of experiment with that. And as you can see, this is an old one that I did, I think, in maybe around March of 2024. And then this is a Crayola, all Crayola. So I had those line streaks that I did on a large area. But I just wanted to test out what could I create using only Crayola. And this was done with my Phoenix watercolors. This one was with the basic set of my Liquitex, and even though this was supposed to be red, it didn't look so red. It looked more pink compared to, if I show you on the other page, that looks a lot more red compared to that one. So that one was actually the pinkish red, was the red that comes in the set. So you have to buy a different red, it seems. And this was done with all of my 15 Neo colours. So it's the first time I got my Neo colours, and I was experimenting with that. And here we have A Million Magical Creatures. I really love this book. So I found a fairy to do, and I wanted to do it like a hydrangeas flower, and then by the time I reached the bottom bit, I just did it a little bit more flat colour just to finish off the page. And I also used a bit of my metallic acrylics, which you can't really see here. I was trying to move around the page just so that you can see that shine from the metallic, but you can't. And here I had some cheap markers, so I was just playing around with shadows. So I really actually, at first I wasn't too impressed with myself, but now looking back, I'm thinking actually I can see the improvement of me trying to use shadows. This one was done with my Museum Aquarelle watercolor pencils. So it's the first page that I did when I had all the colors, not just the basic set. And this was the one where I had only the basic set, and I was like, wow, they're so vibrant. I also mixed some fine liners in there, and this was the first page that I did with my polychromos colouring pencils. And now I can see that I can actually go over it further with my pencils. Back then I felt like that was finished, but now I feel like I could still carry on making those shadows deeper. This one was done with metallic acrylic, white Posca. First time using gesso in Johanna's Christmas book. Some markers on top of gesso, and gold Posca micron pen for the black lines, and a tiny bit of colouring pencil for the antlers, just to see how that worked out. This was done with polychromos and acrylic, so I think I was using Liquitex here. I just mixed the colours myself, just the blue and white. And here's another one done with an acrylic background, and here I based it with white acrylic and then watercolor pencils on top with a little bit of gel pen. Just trying to show you the shimmer of the gel pen. There it is. So also the presents should shimmer a little bit as well. But yeah, it's a little bit of improvement, but sometimes I feel like I'm going backwards in my colouring, that I started off very well. This one I need to do, especially after seeing Neko Simi doing hers, and also someone else did a very nice picture of the clock. And this is Enchanted Forest, another Johanna Basford one. I did that with fine liners by Stabilo. This treasure map page with Crayola, some cheap water-based markers, Stabilo fine liners, and Paper Castle pastel sticks, the soft pastels for the background. So it was quite playful. I wasn't even sure if I should share it, but then I did the gold border and it turned out really nice. And then this one I just finished for Christmas, so I added a Santa with reindeers. So I copied that illustration from was it A Nightmare Before Christmas colouring book, and the tree, the animals inside that tree I did with polychromos. And yeah, that was me trying to do like a water technique with the gelatos, Faber-Castell gelatos. That was the first time I was using that there for the background. So I found the gelatos to be quite messy. Oh. And that's it, guys. Alright. See ya. Take care. Bye.